Hello
Welcome
to another episode of
the Super Data Brothers Super Show.
That's right. I am Ryan.
And I am Eric.
And we are two real-life brothers who work in the data and analytics industry. And have we got a good one for you today, folks?
Yeah, I think we do. You know, Ryan, I'm so excited for today's show because, the question is, BI has been around for a while. For a while, no one was going to call BI anymore. They were going to call it analytics. Then BI came out, so they started calling it BI again. Now it's BI and analytics with data science and machine learning. So the question is, the terms have changed, the landscapes have changed, the technology have changed at some companies. So like today, 2023, and in the future, what's the point? What is BI, and what's the point of BI? And that's hopefully what we're going to answer for you today.
That's right. Yep. What is the point of BI? And I've seen things change a lot over the years, but a lot of things haven't changed. And we're going to get into that. But before we do, go ahead and let us know where you are watching from. Mike Norris, friend of the show. Hello from Ottawa, beautiful city. Every time I go to Ottawa, I love it. Of course, I only visit in the summer.
It's true.
Yeah, and so today's topic, before we get into it, of course, a couple points of order for you. Mm-hmm. So what's the point of BI? Before we get into that, meet the Super Data Brothers. That's right. We will be live in person at a couple events coming up. So DBT Coalesce, awesome conference. For those of you who watch us regularly, who are data engineers, you don't need any introduction to DBT or what the Coalesce conference is. October 16th through 19th in San Diego. I will be there repping Good Data. As many of you know, I am the VP of Product Strategy at Good Data, and we're going to be there in force. So swing by the booth, say hello. I'm doing a presentation. Come to the presentation, and I will be bringing a limited number of the coveted Super Data Brothers shirts. So you got to catch me early. And if you do, I will have one for you. And then Data Day Texas, January 27th, 2024. This event is a hoot. Why do we love Data Day Texas, Eric?
Why do we love Data Day Texas? Well, a few reasons. One, it's just one day. So you don't have to take a bunch of days off of work or anything. You don't have to. So it does. Also, that means it's cheaper. Another reason we love Data Day Texas because it's not something like Coalesce or some of these other conferences where it's run by a vendor or it's run by mostly vendors. Like you'll go to a presentation and you'll learn a bunch of stuff and you won't even know who the person's with until the very end, right? So like the focus isn't on, hey, buy our product. Of course, there are booths there, and if you want to talk to someone about something, you'll be able to talk to them about it. But like all the information you get, it's not a sales pitch. You're not getting a sales pitch, essentially. It's just like good information, good place to meet a lot of people. I think we met a lot of people who we've had on the show or are going to have on the show at last year at Data Day. So it's just overall, if you are into data or want to get into data or the entire scene, it's a great place to start. It's a great place to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you are interested in attending, make sure you use code Super Data Brothers, all one word, in order to get a discount on your registration.
Yep. Just Google Data Day Texas.
Yep.
And then the website will be right there.
Some event in Detroit, TBD this fall. We're working on getting something together. Still nothing to announce there, but I put it on the slide to commit to it and force myself to make it happen. And so that is where you can meet the Super Data Brothers coming up. And of course, we would be remiss today without thanking today's sponsor. That's right. We have another sponsor here on the Super Data Show, Digital Hive. Digital Hive is an analytics catalog, okay? And what is an analytics catalog, you may ask? Because surely you're familiar with the phrase data catalog. And a data catalog, of course, is keeping track of essentially your database assets and helping you figure out where those are, okay? An analytics catalog provides a similar type of functionality for your analytics assets, the things you're producing for human beings to consume and help them make decisions. And so that is what Digital Hive helps with. It does it in a few ways. First of all, it gives you a single place to search for analytics outputs, reports, visualizations, metrics across BI and analytics tools, okay? Then you can combine those assets down to the level of individual visualizations into data stories. So you've got chart from Tableau, chart from Click. They're next to one another. You can even do cross tool filters, which is really neat. So that you can have a timed filter that will filter charts from 3 different BI tools in a single pane of glass. And then they give you, of course, this is all really user-friendly, low-code tools for your end users to do this sort of stuff. That's one of the key things that Digital Hive offers. And then you can brand it however you want. That's another thing we like about it. At the Super Data Show is it really, this analytics portal, it's focused on the people who need to actually consume data, who don't care what tool it's in. What they care about is getting the information they need when they need it in the form that makes the most sense for them. And Digital Hive makes that whole process easy. So we've actually been friends with these guys forever. I remember when this company was first founded, and I've been following it the entire time because I think it's a great idea, and we're happy to have them as a sponsor on the show. So check them out, digitalhive.com, scan the QR code, it'll take you there. I remember the first time I ever saw this, I ever saw Digital Hive was when you and I were at PM Square, Eric, and we had the Bacon conference. At the time, it was called Thea, and we saw Thea demo, and I was just kind of like mind blown, right? Yeah. Very cool stuff. All right, so let's get into today's topic. What is the point of BI?
Also, hi. Thanks for tuning in from Washington State.
That's right. What is the point of BI? So, first of all, let's do a little history lesson, okay? I started my career in 2010, and of course these lines are fuzzy. So when I say 2000s BI, I don't mean like it ended in 2009. People are still doing this stuff. Okay. Yeah. And that's one thing I think we should keep in mind anytime we have this data conversation is like the cutting edge of the data conversation and where probably 90% of data practitioners are actually working are 2 totally different places.
Oh, yeah.
The
talk of the modern data stack and then what people do for their jobs are modern separate conversations.
Like if you run in certain circles, I don't know what's going on in my hair here. If you run in certain circles, modern data stack is old news. And then it probably 80% of people who work in BI and data warehousing don't even know the term, right? Because they are doing day-to-day jobs at, businesses that make auto parts and that produce soap. And
ask them, what's DBT? I'm sure some people tell you DBT is old news.
Yeah.
A lot of people doing it have never heard the word DBT.
Correct.
BI, I've never heard the word DBT.
So let's keep that in mind when we use terms like 2000s BI. I just want to throw that out as a caveat. This is just kind of the era when this way of working was cutting edge. Okay. So how did that work? You had your data source, then you had the big old box in the basement, right? And I can remember going when the new Oracle Exadata blades showed up. That we were going to, that the engineers we didn't even call them engineers back then, that they were going to put into that they were going to, load into the box in the basement to make our data warehouse faster, right? That's where it was running. And then you had this rigid star schema that went into a metadata model in a big BI tool like Business Objects or Cognos. And then you did a PDF burst report, okay? And that was like the cutting edge. Mm-hmm. And all this stuff was very useful and is still very useful with a few exceptions. Like I do believe you probably shouldn't have a big old box in the basement for the most part, unless you have a really, really pressing need for that. But what was good about this era of BI? Okay. Well, first of all, the data was almost always accurate. The trust was high. Even when the trust wasn't high, it was easy to prove that your numbers were accurate because you had this audit trail. You had this really robust process that showed how the numbers were arrived at. And I can remember I worked with someone, Marlene, back in the beginning of my career where, I had produced these OLAP cubes. And every month, Marlene would come to me and say that the transformer cubes were wrong. Okay, every month. And I would sit down with Marlene and we would compare it to her spreadsheet. And every month I would be able to prove that the OLAP cube was correct and Marlene's spreadsheet was wrong. And I was able to do that because we went through this big process where I could show every step of the way of how we produced what we produced, right? you could distribute really easily to tons of people. This is one of the advantages of something like Cognos. Is like if you want to send out 100,000 PDFs on Monday morning, you're going to have to you're going to have to spend a lot of money on the machines to do that, but you can do it, and it will do it in a consistent and it'll do it in a consistent way with high uptime forever. And then I say flexibility in metadata. What I mean by that is like you could, once you went through this process, any attribute or fact that you had added to the metadata model, you could then combine with any other attribute or fact without having to remodel anything or write any extra SQL or anything like that. Right. This was
SQL. You modeled metadata. SQL's generated on the fly.
Right? That was kind of the name of the game when I started. Now, what was bad about this? First of all, it cost a ton of money. Yeah. The box in the basement cost millions of dollars. BI licensing back then, I can remember I was involved in a negotiation with IBM at one point on a Cognos renewal, and they were quoting us almost $30,000 to purchase a Cognos administrator license. You compare that to today, the most expensive license for Tableau is like $75, and that's considered expensive. $75 per month, so $1,000 a year, and that's considered expensive. So it would cost a lot of money. It took forever to do anything. We all know this, right? In the big BI era, you'd get a request, you'd work on it for 6 months, and I say self-service. The other thing, self-service was a joke. Asterisk. The tools couldn't support it. They were too hard to use. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people think that there was some way to get business users using Report Studio back in the Cognos days, which for those of you who aren't familiar, Report Studio is kind of the the pixel perfect report builder, to give you the the header, the footer, the table of numbers, and the padding around the boxes is 5 pixels. I'd like it to be 8 pixels, right?
It's a tool that if you know what you're doing, you can basically do anything. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can really build something terrible.
Exactly. Now, when I had the asterisk next to self-service was a joke, because I used to always say that PowerPlay was Tableau before Tableau. Like you had to have expertise to set up a cube, right, to build an OLAP cube. But once it was built, I do think PowerPlay, people really could do a lot of self-service in PowerPlay. That was the one interface where it worked, and that's because it was essentially a super powered pivot table. And this was really operational, not analytical. Like the goal, of course. Nowadays, we always say decision-making. And even back then, it was decision-making. I think at one point, Cognos' tagline was better decisions every day. But a lot of this was truly like operational in nature, where you were plugging into processes and not necessarily decisions. Part of that was technical. I think part of it was cultural. In 2010, a lot of executives, at least in the industry I was working in at the time, which was utilities, very old school, they were making decisions based on the fact that they knew the price of coal was going to go up when their left knee was aching, because that meant there was cold weather coming, right? Yeah. So we weren't plugging it deep into the decision-making process. Mike Norris has a good point, of course, perpetual versus subscription licensing. Sticker's lower, but it goes on forever. That's right. So that $20,000 or $30,000 Cognos administrator license, we were buying that, right? We could then use that software forever, and we paid like a support fee, which was like 15 or 20% of that total of that cost. But the important thing was you didn't have to pay that. You could say, I'm not paying support anymore. And then you would use the software forever. In its current version, you couldn't get any updates because you owned it, right? That's one of the reasons why you would write a $2 or $3 or $4 million check, which you never do today. But the total cost of ownership
and everything.
Exactly. You're not writing a huge check to purchase the software, but you are signing up to like pay them maybe forever.
Yeah. If you fundamentally build your entire data practice on this piece of technology, maybe you buy it when you're small and you get really big, and then the company that is vending you gets bought out, and all of a sudden prices go up. It's like, well, you can't do anything but pay.
Yep.
right? That's the downside of the easy in subscription model.
Exactly. Now, that was 2000s BI. 2010s BI, of course, is a little different, right? We now have cheap ass storage running on the cloud, right? You're paying hardly any money to store data in S3 or Azure Blob Storage or wherever you've got it, right? The amount of care that goes into building out the data warehouse, people use this term data warehouse nowadays. And I think what they mean is we've got 1,000 tables in a product that says it's a data warehouse, right? They don't mean we spent a lot of time really building out a metadata model. Although
I've been at places that have 2 data warehouses. One a whole bunch of tables, and one actual like Kimball modeled like star schema, right?
Yeah.
So and over time, what has happened? More people use that, just dump everything into a table. Data warehouse.
Quick and easy.
Quick
right?
and easy, man.
Quick and easy.
You can get that project done so quick.
And what ends up happening a lot of times here is like you have the barely organized warehouse. So you create like a single use table, right? You've got some dashboard you're trying to build, or, I don't know, like machine learning model that you're trying to drive. And you create a single table to power that. And then in a BI context, what do you do? Well, you just end up pulling that table in whole as it is into a Tableau hyperfile or into whatever Power BI calls.
Power's not direct query. It's called. I can't
the other query.
The other query type.
Yeah,
basically ingesting the data into memory.
Right. So now you're just replicating the data into memory on a schedule because it gives you better, IO for the end users, and then you build a dashboard. There's a reason this supplanted the way we did things to start. And that's because, one, it's easy to get started, especially nowadays. These are all cloud tools, right? There's QuickTime. People use this like time to value. I think we need to distinguish between like first value and deep value in the data industry. Time to first value is very quick in this model, right? Deep value, I'm going to argue, comes from not from any individual thing you've built, but from the connectedness between them. And this model is very bad in my mind at deep value. Okay.
Yeah.
Self-service here is a little more real. And so it's reality. There are people doing self-service out there with Power BI and that sort of thing. Is it, we'll talk about how effective it is, but it's being done, right? And then there's this integration with data science and ML. Of course, that didn't exist back when I started. The whole point of everything was just to produce reports. And if you could produce timely reports that helped close the books or manage inventory levels in the warehouses, like that alone was a huge win. And in fact, it's still a huge win for a lot of companies.
For most, every company has room that they could be improved by like good old school reporting.
Exactly.
Everyone in existence.
Exactly. Now, what's bad about 2010's BI? Oh man, is data a mess nowadays?
Oh yeah.
You hear this everywhere.
Hello, I'm writing from 2023. The data is still a mess.
Yeah, exactly, Randy.
True, Randy.
It's a mess, man. And this world made it messier. It was faster, but it's messier. It's almost like the difference between like watching my kids clean the toy room is they can do it really fast as long as everything just gets shoved into the closet. Yeah,
that's a good analogy.
And so reproducibility here is also poor. I think it's a lot harder in a lot of cases to show why you did something. And that's one, because you've done it so quickly. And two, because things are scattered across disparate systems much more. So like there's this whole class of tools now called data observability, that all they exist to do is like look at the audit log of what you did and help you unpack it. Because nowadays there's like 9 tools, you've got, you got I almost said Fortran. You got Fivetran and Snowflake and DBT and good data and Power BI and like all these systems. Whereas before you would have had basically like you could have gotten information for all of those things out of Informatica and Cognos.
Yep. One vendor system.
Yep. Self-service hype.
Tied to your Oracle database, essentially.
Right. I mean, you had three things to look at, right? Oracle logs, Informatica logs, Cognos audit database. And that could have told you everything that happened. Self-service hype has not lived up to reality. I think you're just seeing this recognition everywhere. Okay. Gartner, for example, is really starting to talk about this, which is surprising because Gartner really drove a huge hype wave around self-service and made self-service and the drag and drop dashboard building interface like 90% of your ranking on their Magic Quadrant.
Yeah, it was like it was basically everything. Like if you had good self-service drag and drop, you were top quadrant.
Yep. And of course, this all has proven for many people to be just ungovernable, right? And so that brings us to there's our history lessons over.
Yeah.
Now, what's the point of all this in 2023?
Here. Hold on. Yeah. No, oops, wrong. There you go. Randy said, I'm running from 23. The data is still a mess. And then we've got Paul. Hi, I traveled back in time from 2033, and I've got some bad news. It's true.
Exactly.
I think 2043 we'll be seeing a lot of this. Same stuff.
Yeah, and we've got self-service works for a small subset of people, but most people need a curated experience. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And I think that's what we've found. Like, that's just what we found is like the idea of, okay, everybody's just going to go, just getting people to go fetch their own information. Like forget about building their own dashboards and building their own visualizations. Just getting them to go into the BI interface and look at the damn stuff.
And run it. Hey, we built this for you. Hey, we built this for you. Can you please test it?
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Like the sound of the wind blowing.
And so I think that challenge has always existed. So I think maybe that should have been a clue. Like, look, we can't get people to just go look at the reports. Like, forget about teaching them to build them. Okay.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we did is I wanted to know what the people have to say about the point of BI in 2023. And so I went on to the business intelligence subreddit and I did a post asking what is the point of BI in 2023. And
we were expecting maybe 2 or 3 comments. We got like 6. There was like 60 comments on it. So
it's one of the most popular things I've ever posted on Reddit as an individual. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot to comb through. I think maybe it touched a nerve amongst BI practitioners. And so I wanted to highlight some of the comments that people gave before we started diving into our opinions about what is the point of BI in 2023. And so first of all, I found this one to be really interesting. Okay. Maybe the point of BI in 2023 is actually to serve as a foundation for the data science team, right? And this analogy in particular that I highlighted, okay, BI is to an accountant, right? Or I think what he meant to write is BI is the data science, what an accountant is to a financier, okay? An accountant keeps your books on point. You look backwards, you go to the accountant and ask how the business did, okay? A financier gives you insight into the future, where to allocate your assets. But the financier can't do anything if the accounting has not been done properly. And so I thought that was actually a pretty interesting metaphor, first of all, to look at the relationship between BI and data science. And I think that this has been historically true. And a big mistake that people have made is trying to jump to data science without having a BI foundation. Now, I'm going to argue that BI is maybe a foundation. You need to think broader for what BI can be a foundation for than your data science team. But the idea of BI as a foundation is something you're going to want to keep in mind. Here was an interesting comment, and I'm curious what you think in the chat of this one, if you agree with, especially this first line, the Cognos days of spending money on good data are gone. That's this person's perspective, and I can see why they feel that way, because for anybody who came up in the Cognos days, we really spent a lot of money and time building models and shaping data in order to ensure it was accurate and usable.
Millions of dollars and years of time to build sometimes a single model.
Exactly. And nowadays the feeling is that has kind of gone by the wayside. And that was a big feeling from people in the subreddit in general, that those of us who have been at it for a while, maybe there was a sense of loss in a way from that way of doing things. Also, this idea that democratization has dumbed down the tools, processes, and the quality of data. That like the more people we bring into the data fold, into BI, the more self-service tooling is out there, the more self-service data pipelines are created, the dumber the whole thing has gotten. And that is not I think you'd find that in every industry that has gone through the changes that ours has gone through in the last decade, that the old hands would feel like things have gotten dumb. Only 10% of companies have some semblance of an actual enterprise data warehouse, and they eat the other 90% for lunch. So the thing I liked about this too was he's actually tying this to business outcomes. The value of doing data right, the slow way, right? Gives you a business, an edge in business value. And I think if you were to talk to Chris Tabb, which we have, or Joe Reese, who's coming on the show next week, they would probably agree that like there's an element of this that has been lost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like this must like come. It's like the tide coming in and coming out of. We need consistent data. We need good enterprise data, and then the tide comes in, and then like people, every single modality you use has some problems, and so like it'll get implemented poorly in some places, and people say we need to change, and then the tide will recede. No, self-service, and then the wave will come back in. Oh, we need to have consistent data. One too many times giving a bad report to a state government. And the wave comes back, and you need good. Verifiable enterprise data again, you know?
Yep, exactly. We got a couple comments we'd like to highlight. Friend of the show, Cognos Paul Mendelson. I can't count the number of times I've been asked to prepare a report that just feeds something else downstream. This is the BI practitioner's lament right here. Here we've got this comment is so on point. Self-service is mostly a marketing phrase. Yep.
Oh yeah, what is what's this? Self-service is not a strategy.
Self-service is not a strategy. Aaron Wilkerson. Go back a couple of weeks. Aaron Wilkerson is awesome. If you don't follow him on LinkedIn, please do. If you're interested in data leadership, data strategy, he is like a rising star. The guy's amazing.
I had an interview recently internally at my current company, and I used some of the terminology I learned from him when talking about like running a BI practice. So.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good.
He's a fellow Lions fan too.
Yes.
Mike Norris, of course, money on data, data catalogs, metric stores, right? Metadata model and business layers. I mean, it's all of that stuff is coming back into vogue right now, which is really interesting. And I think it's a response to maybe what Zombie Barney here is talking about, right? Here I've been asking myself the same thing. So this is another person who's been around for a while. Thinks BI will morph into keeping metadata accurate, building tables, continuous QA of data to feed LLM self-service, right? The reporting dashboard piece will be less and less relevant as the average corporate employee has a much higher level of comfort with data than they did 10 years ago.
Yeah. I wonder if like you'll be able to use that to justify to like the business leaders at your organization that, well, we do need to spend 2 years making this model because then we can have this. You've been hearing about this LLM. If we get a good data model going, then we can actually have it be useful. Otherwise, it's going to be bad. I wonder if we're going to start seeing like CEOs start like approving those budgets again.
So we do have because definitely the theory that the thought is like garbage in, garbage out will be exacerbated by LLMs because it will so convincingly serve up garbage.
Oh yeah, there'll be a total lie that can be told very convincingly with all the data you have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I do wonder if people will turn to them more than like if like will you be more likely to go ask the LLM a question than you were to open the BI system and look at a report?
Are you right now more likely to ask ChatGPT than use Google? Has your Google use gone down?
Yeah, my Google use has cratered since.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the same. If they always have a tab open or have a shortcut on their browser that's just, or on their phone, an app that's just the company's LLM, they're going to go to that before they open up any tool, any other tool.
Mike Norris, LLM selfish service. It's the next chaos. I do think we're in for a chaotic period here in the industry. Here we've got LMAO. I'm just imagining having to argue with an AI and hit the magic prompt words to get some purchase orders data for last year, instead of just setting 3 filters in Power BI and sorting the table result. And this is one point that Colin Zima from Omni, who was our very first interview, made recently about, like, Colin's theory is that LLMs will be very useful, but that there will always be a place for, like, the dedicated UI. And he kind of made the point that, and this may be what we see come to pass, I don't know, like, there was a time when enterprise search was all the rage. Everybody was trying to, like, it's like Google, but for your inside your company. And how much of that really panned out? You know,
how useful is your company's SharePoint really?
Right. And it's
a clunky piece of something.
Yeah, and so the idea just being like a UI that's dedicated towards, like, a dedicated UI that is dedicated towards really quickly allowing you to manipulate data without having to talk to the machine will always have a place and be important, is Colin's perspective on it. And we may see that. I when it comes to this, like I always say, like every week when we talk about this, we say people underestimate short-term change, or they overestimate short-term change and they underestimate long-term change.
Yep.
Right. And so I think Colin's right in the short and medium term, and then in the long term, nobody knows.
Nope. No idea.
BI consumption layers up for massive transformation. The line between authors and end users will blur, right? End user will pretty much self-serve their own needs. But what won't change is data prep. You still need engineers, context into the data. And so I think here we see the theory that a big part of what's historically been BI, which is prepping the analytics output, is going to go away completely. And that it will all be self-service. Now, they don't specifically mention LLMs here, but I would imagine that's what's driving this comment.
Yeah. Here, hold on. One thing I wanted to bring up about arguing with the AI. I just had a thought. Like, imagine if, like, you're a consultant, you get hired to, like, consult with the police department or something. So, like, you take all their data or whatever that, and then, like, you feed it into your LLM when you set one up for them, and you can't get it to tell you anything. It's like, oh, sorry, I can't discuss crime statistics. Right. Just imagine you set up the LLM and, like, all the safeguards are put in, like, you can't actually discuss your actual data if it's anything controversial. I imagine that's a future that could happen, where you're literally, because he's mentioned arguing, literally arguing with the LLM, be like, please give me this data. Like, you have to jailbreak your own LLM to get real information.
I mean, for real. And like in kind of in the same vein, you know, Paul's concern is that the LLM backlash will be very severe when people realize that they just lie when they don't know the answer. And I've gotten in arguments with LLMs about data that, like, it's making stuff up, and I'm saying what you're saying isn't true, and it apologizes and then makes up the same thing. I've had that happen when working with ChatGPT. This person had an experience at a major conference where, they went to a major data conference just last week, and it was clear that GPT still can't handle numerical information correctly. It'll be good for coding. This is actually one of my predictions, where LLMs are going to make, and already are making, a huge difference right away, is in helping, as an accelerator for generating code.
Oh yeah, big time. I've written lots of scripts that would have taken me 2 days and 2 hours.
Yep. And that is obvious, and you're going to see a huge advantage there. But actually manipulating the numbers You know, that they're still very challenged by that.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's if you use GPT-4 and go turn on like the analysis mode, it'll like write Python to do data analysis for you right now. So it'll mess up sometimes, and you got to handhold it. But I mean, it's not there yet, but golly, does it seem close sometimes.
And that is really kind of like where I think it's probably going to go, is like the LLM is not going to be doing the math for you. The LLM will be interacting with some other system that's doing the math and then receiving the results.
A multi-agent LLM system. Like I think Microsoft just came out with there have been some open source ones, and Microsoft just came out one. I think it's also open source. It's called like AutoGen. It's for like creating multiple LLM agents and then also connecting that to external systems and stuff. That's kind of stuff has existed with like Flowise and like LangChain, but like Microsoft just came out with like a framework to combine all those things into like a team of LLMs that can do stuff for you. So this stuff is coming out quick. So maybe in a month we'll be saying something different.
This was one of my favorite quotes. The point of BI in 2023 is for companies selling BI software to leech off of corporate budgets by creating vendor lock-in to their data, proprietary package format, or both. Whether the data is generated within Azure or by SaaS applications or Twitter, all of these sources will get harder and more expensive to integrate. Migrating between BI tools will also be expensive. So this is kind of a more cynical take on the point of BI is to generate revenue for vendors, of course. And there's always new stuff, and some element of the new stuff is just generated by vendor hype and analyst hype, you know, trying to sell software, trying to sell subscriptions to the analyst services, trying to get you to go to conferences.
Yep.
We live in a capitalist system. People out there trying to make money.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have some people with way too much money and nothing to do with it. So a lot of stuff gets funded.
Exactly. Now, one of the things that I do think is true is that as you see in the BI space in particular, Microsoft is just the 100-pound, you know, or is the juggernaut in the room right now. And of course, they're just trying to move everything to Azure, right? Like Power BI is a loss leader. I describe it sometimes to people as like, you know, it's like the $1 gallon of milk that gets you in the Azure store.
They put it at the back, so you got to walk through everything else.
Got to walk through everything to get to it, right? And so there is, if you look at Gartner's predictions, like they think that the future may be owned just by the big cloud vendors, and that they're, you know, that like people are going to be evaluating BI as part of a total end-to-end data platform. And then in that world, you know, you're pretty much only going to be buying QuickSight or Looker or Power BI as part of your investment in GCP or Azure or AWS.
Yeah.
Now
back to that the 2000s single vendor we were talking about.
Yeah. And now, do I agree with that? Well, no, I work at an independent BI vendor, and so obviously I don't. But, you know, there's some truth to like, that's what the big vendors want. They want to lock you into their ecosystem. And one of the things what we made a conscious decision at Good Data, that one of the ways we can survive is being totally open, right? So like you can deploy Good Data on any cloud. You can, right? Yeah. Like we're rolling out next week, spoiler alert, we're putting in a new query and caching layer to the software, and it's built on Apache Arrow, right? So like we're moving away from everything proprietary. We're trying to be open and make it easy to get in and out of any part of our software as like an antidote to this. But this is definitely direction the market is headed. At least the big vendors want it to head, right?
Yeah, that's what they're pushing for.
This one made me laugh. What's the point of BI in 2023? Well, there are still a ton of companies using Crystal Reports, which hasn't been supported since 2011. That's actually not true, by the way. A new version of Crystal Reports came out a couple of years ago. But it might not be relevant in the most competitive positions, but most of us aren't in those positions, right?
That's true. Ryan, did you hear that there are places outside of California?
I did.
I just learned that there's more than California in the world, and it blew my mind.
That's spoken like a true Michigander right there. Uh-huh. Here in flyover country, we still use Crystal Reports.
Yeah. Hey, you can get to my state by canal, okay?
That's true. My daughter loves the Erie Canal song. So this is really true. Like, and it's a point we made earlier in the show today. There is a lot more to BI and analytics than what's coming out of Facebook or what's happening in startup land. Although those things suck up all the oxygen, right? Most people aren't doing that. Most BI practitioners and data warehouse data engineers are probably working at companies that aren't thinking about these things or facing these challenges yet. They're still trying to get the bedrock BI right. And so when you ask what's BI about in 2023, a lot of it is still about getting the stuff from the 2000s and the 2010s right for a lot of people out there. And that's just something we should recognize, that like that is a huge part of what's still going on in data today. Of course, here's another one. BI will always be important. There's way more data. A big theme of what people had to say was like, things are not going to go away. Things are not going to change. Like the challenges we've always had are still the challenges today and will remain the challenges in the future, right? So that was a big theme of what people said overall. And then here's the last one I would leave us with, and then we'll move on from the Reddit feedback. But everybody here is in denial. Major companies like Salesforce and Microsoft are integrating chatbots, which automate the processes analysts used to do. In the context of business intelligence, a BI developer only exists because interfacing with data is hard. Visualizing data is clunky. AI and LLMs solve it, and bots can do most BI work. The BI profession only exists because user interfaces suck. The moment the products can deliver reports and visualizations by literally asking, you remove the need for analysts entirely. I think this was the only person who went this far with this sentiment in the chat or in the response. But this is definitely where the vendors are trying to go, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no question this is where they're trying to go. So the question will be, are they able to do it? But I think there is a degree of denial about like, this is 100% the effort that is being made is like, can we replace almost all of these BI people and data analysts with a robot? If this is possible to do, it's going to get done.
Medium and short term, I would say no. It'll just make the job of the individual BI expert or analyst easier. Medium short term, because you still need to like clarify requirements with users and that sort of thing. But as I'm saying that, I've had ChatGPT ask me clarifying questions that have been useful too.
Right.
So medium short term, probably not. But like long term, who knows what the futures hold? Like how are we going to have to pivot to keep on working?
Yep. So that's what the crowd thinks the point of BI is. What do we think? The Super Data Show. Well, first of all, the point of BI is to deliver business value at the end of the day. And there's been a big conversation about that. I think people are starting to get sick of hearing about value. If you follow the LinkedIn trends around data, which of course I do for you, so you don't have to.
Thank you for your sacrifice.
That's right. But it remains the important thing, right? You need to tie so like the highest level point of BI is to use data to help people do things that drive business value. Sell more product, deliver the same product more cheaply, find customers or keep customers. That's it, right? That's the point of BI. And when your data team is really good at it, it's like the bat signal to call in Batman. But I think really the point of BI is that data is a signal, okay? The point of all data work is to inform decisions. This is something that people talk about a lot. And now we're going to get a little theoretical here, okay? Yes, right? We all say, we need to get data to decision makers. We need to, data is for making better decisions. So you're not making a decision based on your own just your past experience and your gut, but you're incorporating hard data into it, right? Well, whose decisions? is a question that I want to challenge people to answer, because often it's like, okay, decision makers, right? Who makes the decision in the organization? Well, decision makers do. And that's often perceived to be executives, people's with C in front of their names for sure. And, the letters VP or directors, right? Obviously, they need to make business decisions. And that's true, right? But is that enough? Like, is that enough as we move into an era where maybe the machine can answer a lot of questions, basic questions for us by just typing into a chat, and not just answer the question, but build a visualization or a dashboard? Is it enough to just give executives data to make decisions? Or is there something more we should be shooting for as an industry? Is there something bigger BI should evolve into? Right? Now, this is this was my shower thought the other day, and why I wanted to do this topic for a show, okay? The point of data is not just to help people make decisions, it's to solve a coordination problem, right, in the organization. And this is what I think BI should be about going forward. This is the point of it. Not to build charts, distribute reports. It's to solve a coordination problem. And that problem is that getting everyone to do the same thing in a company or in any part of life, and a complex organization of any kind, is really friggin' hard, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard to get your brain to agree to something. So
yeah, and
parts of your brain to agree to one thing. So
exactly, right. And so the point of data is to get everyone rowing in the same direction, without having to explicitly demand it of them, without having to get everyone into a big room and give them there's explicit directions of what they are to do, or to get them all into a Slack channel. Let's get all 350 good data employees into one Slack channel where we're going to give everybody their instructions for the day, right? The point of data, a well-designed BI program, in my mind, is to solve this coordination problem, to make it possible for data to be make it possible to have a signal that helps the executive and the person filling orders in the warehouse, and the salesperson and the customer support rep and the engineers building the software, who all make 100 little decisions every day. Not just executives, but everybody makes 100 little decisions every day, to get all those decisions working in concert to advance the purpose of the organization, right? That is the point of data. That is what we should all be striving to do. So it goes way beyond informing decision makers, right? It goes into helping people. When I say decision makers, I mean executives. It goes into helping people, sending a signal that gets everybody pulling in the same direction across the organization. That's what this is all about, okay? Data can be that language, and that means that we have to deliver lots of different experiences using data that go way beyond what we're used to doing as BI practitioners. And that's what we have to support. I think that is where BI is headed, is we need to be able to support the executives who need to make decisions about the direction of the company, but then we also need to be able to support everyone who executes on that direction at the same time, right? And then data is what we use to inform all of those little decisions that people make day to day in their job, to help them ensure that we're doing what we need to do to deliver business value, right? Does that make sense? So the point of BI is to provide the systems of coordination that get the company working together, okay? It's helping executives make decisions to set the agenda. It's identifying what metrics will actually help us track success on that agenda, and help us tell people how to execute the agenda, right? Distribute these metrics to the point of maximum leverage. That means for a different thing for different people. It may mean a dashboard, a traditional dashboard for a lot of people. It may mean using BI notebooks to tell a story, right? It may mean embedding visualizations or single numbers into operational systems. Most of the work in many companies, especially the more the company lives in the real world and makes soap, right? Lots of decisions are not made in analytical systems and are never going to be, right? We need to get the information, the metrics that those people need to get to all be working in the same direction into the places that they consume that information. And that may be on a piece of paper, right? And then track all this progress over time to further decision making. Like that is the point of BI, I think, in 2023. It's not just to produce reports. It's not to just help the executives as a decision support system, right? It is to provide the signal in the company that everyone can look at to help make their individual decisions every day, to get everybody rowing in the same direction without having to go and explicitly tell everyone every little step that they should make. Like that is the goal of data. So what do you actually need to do this, right? Semantics and metrics governance are going to be very important in this world. Okay. We're getting away from just churning out tables, churning out dashboards. Distribution of places that matter. This means embedding. This means embracing LLMs and even putting little chatbots in places where people are interacting with data so they can ask questions. You can ask a chatbot what you should do. Here's the problem I'm facing. What should I do? If the chatbot has access to your metrics and it understands the company's goals, it should actually be able to tell you. It can at least give you an idea, right?
Our starting point, at least.
A starting point. Strong process and vision is going to be one of the things you need to bring to BI in 2023 going forward, right? And less about time to first value, which is defined by, we had a question, we answered the question. How many widgets did we get rid of? How many widgets are still in this warehouse? Or, give me give me this particular metric over the last 12 months, or build me this dashboard. Being able to do that quickly is important. That's time to first value. This is time to deep value. Okay. And I do think like all the dashboards and reports, that's going to be done by AI soon-ish, right? It's going to be done well enough.
Yeah.
That we need to, as BI practitioners, think more about the system. We will become systems designers and not dashboard designers or pipeline builders, right? But designing the whole system. Going back to a visualization we first used in our very first episode, right? The data tree metaphor. It's like it's a circulatory system. You're distributing information to where it needs to go and then collecting outcomes and pulling it back in to help steer the ship and get everybody rowing in the same direction. That is the point of BI in 2023. And it goes way beyond BI tools and pipelines and data warehouses and that kind of thing, and goes towards producing a system that helps people make decisions and get everybody working together. That's the point. Okay. A couple comments and then we'll wrap up. All right. So Paul, BI should feed all business processes. Executives are at the most basic level business processes. Executives themselves are business processes.
I mean, I've heard some pretty in-depth analysis from ChatGPT, so maybe these executives need to start watching their back.
Same data should also feed automated systems and machines or any other semi-intelligent device. Absolutely, right? It's because there's already a lot of research being done on how can we ask AI to make the decisions with no human in the loop. And in that world, it's going to be even more important that you have things like semantics and accurate information, accurate metrics, agreed upon definitions. All of that sort of stuff is crucial. We've also got, when will founders and CEOs understand that data teams should work as checkers roles in maker-checker dynamic in business for all? For this, they need to be a separate org in themselves. I mean, this is, Madhav, this is actually a really interesting point, right? That like, and it's kind of what I'm saying is like the data becomes the touchstone that the organization uses to say, okay, first to help set the goal, right? It needs to inform setting the goal. And once the goals have been set, to measure how are we doing, right? And always be going back to that. And that I firmly believe that with some of the AI that's coming out and the new UI UXs that are being developed and the way we can embed data directly into applications or software experiences much more easily than we used to, that we really can get to a point where data is helping people make decisions, driving their day-to-day work, especially if there's an AI that instead of having to learn how to read a chart or do an analysis, can do the analysis for you. And then you as a person in a warehouse or a salesperson can just look at the summary that the AI generated, read it, and incorporate that into what you're doing. Now we're talking about a very powerful system for coordinating human beings. And that is what I see as the point of BI in 2023 and going forward. We're not there yet, but what I would say is let's start preparing to build this world.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
Rant over. I'm curious what you guys think. So let us know in the comments here. Of course, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We love doing this show. We really loved getting some feedback from the BI subreddit this time around. That was like very interesting and very cool to see
like
the
all the different
responses.
Perspectives. Yeah.
Yep. In fact, we actually fed. We didn't have time in today's show to go over it because we had a late start. But we actually fed everybody's responses into an LLM and asked the LLM to summarize it for us, right? So we practiced.
It did a good job.
It does a really good job. We practiced what we preach. I could turn those into slides and present for half an hour off of those. So yeah, it was. I mean, really, like it was really. The technology is remarkable. So thanks for coming. Like, comment, subscribe. We want to thank our sponsor, of course, Digital Hive. Look, brass tacks, what is the problem that Digital Hive solves? The biggest problem it solves is that y'all got too many BI systems and people don't want to use them, okay? That's what an analytics catalog does. It brings the analytics assets together into one place, makes them discoverable, okay? But it also makes it so that in Digital Hive's case, not all analytics catalogs do this, first of all, let me tell you. But Digital Hive does. It lets you combine the actual assets themselves. I don't just mean the reports. I mean the individual visualizations from the reports, Tableau, Click, Power BI, single dashboard, cross-tool filters for data storytelling, to bring everything into one place, make it discoverable for your end users, to give them a portal they can go to instead of having to use all these different BI systems, which, let's be honest, people hate. So check out Digital Hive, digitalhive.com. Look at the QR code. It'll take you there. Randy says, I loved the show today. Thank you, Randy. We loved having you. I love getting downvoted to hell in the BI SQL Server subreddit. Every time I give a correct response, that wasn't what they wanted to hear. Yeah. Did we read one of your comments today, Randy? I wonder. That is, of course, there's groupthink in BI. There's groupthink in every industry. And
especially on Reddit.
Especially on Reddit, right? So that's one thing. We're trying to be the antidote to BI groupthink here at the Super Data Brothers show. So I want to thank you all for coming. Like, comment, subscribe, click the bell, all that YouTube stuff. And and then, of course, check us out at DBT Coalesce, October 16th through 19th, and Data Day Texas, January 27th. Get your Super Data Brothers t-shirt. Highly sought after, coveted, and hard to find.
True.
I think that wraps it up, Eric. Any last words for the people?
No, I think that's about it. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Until next time, I am Ryan.
I am Eric.
And we are the Super Data Brothers. Stay safe, everybody. Bye.
Bye.